Hello dear students, I am Dr. Sanjay Pagar, Associate Professor, Department of Geography. Dear student, I welcome all of you in this online lecture series on behalf of Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samajas, Charity Arts, BH Commerce and AM Science, popularly known as KTHM College, Nasik. Dear student, this is our S.Y.B.Sc class, semester 3rd, Geography paper 1st, that is Environmental Geography part 1st. Dear student, this is our lecture number 31. In this lecture, we are going to discuss our third chapter, that is environmental problem, global issues and India's major problem. And in this lecture, we are going to discuss a very important subtopic of this chapter, that is nuclear pollution. This topic we are going to discuss in two parts. Today, we are going to discuss our first part. Dear student, in our previous lecture, we have already discussed about effects of noise pollution and measures to control noise pollution. Today, in this lecture, we are going to discuss about definition of nuclear pollution and the sources or the causes of the nuclear pollution. Dear student, you know that one of the most important and dangerous type of pollution is nuclear pollution. Dear student, the radioactive substances have high energy particles which are tiny bits of matter that are made to move at high speed, releasing nuclear radiation. There are about 50 naturally occurring radioactive substances in the world, and also more than 2000 man-made such type of the radioactive substances are also available in the world. And dear student, you know that these all the radioactive substances are responsible to create the nuclear pollution in the world. For your kind information, dear student, at the present, no country has efficiently solved this issue of nuclear pollution in case of radioactive waste storage. Therefore, this type of the pollution we observe all part of the world, and this is very dangerous type of pollution. Let us first discuss about the definition of nuclear pollution. Dear student, a very simple definition that we are going to discuss here. The first definition of nuclear pollution is the environmental pollution mainly caused by radioactive substances or the radiation is called nuclear pollution. Dear student, if you see this definition, that we observe that here one thing are very important in this definition, that is radioactive substances or the radiation. These things are responsible to create the pollution, and this pollution is known as nuclear pollution. Second definition is also very important. In this definition also same thing are repeat, just few words are replaced. According to second definition, nuclear pollution means what? Any undesirable effects caused to the environment due to radioactive substances or the radiations is called nuclear pollution. Yes, dear student, when these radioactive substances or the radiation mix in the atmosphere, then that is very harmful for the environment, and there that time this type of the process known as, or this type of the pollution is known as a nuclear pollution. Another one definition that we are going to discuss here, when the level of radiation substances which is present in the nature is increases, then it is called nuclear pollution. Dear student, you know that there is a normal limit of the level of the radiation of substances, but when due to the natural thing or due to the man-made thing, when this level of radiation substances is increased more than normal limit, then it will be create the hardness to all type of the biotic factor that are present on the atmosphere. Then this process or this pollution is known as nuclear pollution. Dear student, if you see all these three definitions, then you will observe that yes, the main thing is what is responsible for the pollution, this pollution, that is radiation of substances or the radiation, or you can say that when this radiation is mixed in the atmosphere and the level of this radiation is increased more than normal limit, then this type of the pollution is known as nuclear pollution. Let us discuss what are the sources or the causes of the nuclear pollution. Generally, we can classify it the sources of the nuclear pollution into two groups. First is natural sources and second is man-made sources. First, let us discuss about the few examples of the natural sources that are responsible for nuclear pollution. The first is very important, that's radioactive material. Yes, dear student, you know that. And the second is the cosmic rays. Yeah, we will discuss this in detail. First, let us highlight on the major causes of the nuclear pollution. This was about the example of the natural sources. Let us see what are the man-made sources. First man-made sources is use of nuclear weapon. This is a very important cause or the source of the nuclear pollution. Second is nuclear power plant. Third, that is a nuclear waste handling and disposal process. Fourth one, that accident or the damage to the nuclear power plant. Next one, mining. Next one, that spillage of radioactive chemicals. Then we have a defensive weapon production. So these are the important causes or the sources of the nuclear pollution. Dear student, let's discuss all these sources one by one in detail. Let us start with the natural sources. First is, yes, I just mentioned that radioactive material such as uranium, thorium and the radium. These are the major radioactive material that are available or exist naturally in the soil and the rocks. Dear student, the main characteristic of this natural material that are radioactive material, that is they release the continuously radiation in the atmosphere, and that radiation are responsible to create the nuclear pollution at the place where this radioactive material is available. The storage of this material is available. It may in the soil or maybe in the rock. Particularly in that place, we have these very important causes of the nuclear pollution related to that particular area. This is our first natural source of the nuclear pollution. Second is that cosmic rays. Dear student, you know that the cosmic rays are come from the outer space to our planet Earth with the intense radiation as their nature. Therefore, they are causing the radioactive pollution on the Earth's surface, and then this is the second important natural reason or the source of the nuclear pollution. For example, gamma rays. These are the example of the rays. They release the radiation, the continuous intense radiation in the atmosphere, and that are responsible to create the nuclear pollution in the atmosphere. Then let us discuss about the man-made sources. The first important man-made source is the use of nuclear weapon. Yes, student, the use of nuclear missile or the atom bomb is an example of nuclear weapon. And when we use this nuclear weapon, that time there we observe the nuclear pollution. Dear student, this is also a form of nuclear energy. In the Second World War, it explained not only the cause but also the damaging nature of radioactive pollution. For your kind information, might be you know that on the 6 August 1945, during the Second World War, American B-19 bomber dropped the world's first deployed atom bomb over the Japanese city, that was Hiroshima. And after 3 days, on 9 August 1945, second bomb was dropped by the America on Japanese another city, that was Nagasaki. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki, these are the two cities that were destroyed by the America by using the atom bomb. So therefore, this is the very important example that shows, you know, that on that day, on that particular 6 August and 9 August, you observe that was both city was totally damaged due to the use of this nuclear weapon. And dear student, when such type of the nuclear weapon are used in actual use, that time during that process on a large scale, the nuclear energy or radiations are released in the atmosphere, and yes, that radiation is responsible for create the nuclear pollution. So this is a very important example that the first thing, that use of nuclear weapon are the major source of the nuclear pollution. Second one, that is a nuclear power plant. Yes, student, the intense nuclear energy from the radioactive fuel is used to heat water to steam. And when we use this energy, the steam is then used to turn for the turbines that time the turn work to generate the produce electricity. During that process, again the large amount of radiation is released from that process, and that release of the energy or the radiation is responsible to create the nuclear pollution at that particular area. The small amount of radiation are released during this process into the water, which may be then disposed the intercriminally, causing the nuclear pollution. Therefore, this is a very important reason or the cause or source of the nuclear pollution. Third one is also very important. That is nuclear waste handling and disposal. This is also again the important reason or the cause for nuclear pollution. Dear student, the radioactive waste are mainly consist of the disposal from, it may be from nuclear weapon, the cleaning material from the nuclear plant, military installation, emitted from the plutonium, processing, or maybe the other radio stoffer or from the hospital or laboratory or the various purpose, mainly for research purpose, for medicine purpose. We use all these things. But when we use this thing, that time this nuclear waste, if you not handle properly or disposal properly, then this may be the cause of, yes, not maybe but sure, that is the cause of the nuclear pollution at that particular area. So therefore this is also very important. I repeat again that the handling and disposal of the nuclear waste may generate low to medium radiation over a long period of time, and that is responsible to create the nuclear pollution at that particular area. Next one is also very important man-made cause of the nuclear pollution, that is accident or the damage to nuclear power plant. Yes student, this one example is very important, and it is a important example of how this accident might be the responsible for create the nuclear pollution at that particular area. The most famous of this example from the Russia, that was the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Russia. It was happened on 26 April 1986. On this day, these things were happened, this accident was happened, and during this accident, large amount of the radiation is released in the atmosphere, and that caused the what I am saying, the nuclear pollution at the particular. Again, another example is there. The first example is that the such type of the event are repeated 3 times in the world. First, it was in the Russia, second in the Ukraine, and third one was the Belarus. These are the 3 areas where due to the accident of the nuclear power plant, we observe the nuclear pollution on a large scale. Next important cause of the nuclear pollution is that is a mining. Mining mostly involves the extraction of the mineral ores, which are then broken into the smaller and manageable pieces. Dear student, hence the mining increase the natural geological process by moving this material from underneath the earth to the surface. In the mining process, when we move all these things, all these mineral ores from one place to another place, during that process, some amount of the radiation is released in the atmosphere, and that radiation is responsible for the nuclear pollution. Yes, dear student, in the mining place, at the mining work, you observe this cause is very important to create the nuclear pollution at that particular area. The most part of the world where we have this mining of the plutonium, uranium, thorium, or this type of the mineral, that place we observe particularly this is the main reason to create the nuclear pollution. Next one is also important reason, that is the spillage of radioactive chemicals. Dear student, you know that there have been instances of the spillage over the ocean when ship hits the glaciers or the polar reef and end up releasing the chemical on the waterway and in the atmosphere. During that process, the most part of the I'm talking about when the radiation is released in the atmosphere and in the water also, that time it creates the nuclear pollution at that particular place. Therefore, this is also important thing. Another thing that the majority of these chemicals, including petroleum product, have a significant level of radiation, and which can be harmful to the environment. So therefore, this is also important reason or the cause of the nuclear pollution that we observe during this process. Next important, that is the radiation test. Dear student, this is also very important reason or the cause responsible for the creating nuclear pollution. Dear student, you know that radiation has many interesting properties which has promoted a lot of scientists to conduct the test to learn more about it. And yes, when the scientists use this radiation for the various purpose, all these things for the various purpose to conduct the research work or the experiment work, during that process sometime due to the human error or maybe the other mistake, some radiation are released in the atmosphere, and that time they are responsible to create the nuclear pollution. It is one of the key elements in the cure and treatments of the cancer. Especially I am talking about the chemotherapy. A cancer curative health treatment use the radiation to prevent the further growth of the cancer cells as well as to keep the immune system strong. So during this process, when these elements are used, that time again I am repeating, due to some human error or maybe some mistake, some amount of radiation is mixed in the atmosphere, and during that process this process is responsible to create the nuclear pollution at particular that laboratory, or maybe in the at that lab, or maybe where we are going to use or we conduct this test. At that place particularly we observe this type of the nuclear pollution. Dear student, you know that this is a very important things, and here I am talking about the most of the advanced country continuously doing such type of the research work or to conduct such type of the tests, and that time some nuclear pollution that we observe due to this work. The nuclear plant, power plant constantly emit the low level of radiation into the environment, and that release some amount of the radiation in the environment that are responsible to create the nuclear pollution, particularly that place. Last one that is very important, that defensive weapon production. Yes student, this is also another important reason that create the nuclear pollution. The productions of defensive weapon that may release the radiation from the radioactive material handle usually have high health risks. These are, dear student, some important causes or the sources of the nuclear pollution. Dear student, in next lecture we are going to discuss about effects of the nuclear pollution and also how to control the intensity of nuclear pollution by using the various measures that we are going to discuss in our next lecture. Thank you.